Okay, we're ready.
All right, good morning. And again, sorry for the delay. This technology, I'm telling you, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It's a great time to be alive, people. So thank you for your patience. And also, this is a great day. January the 18th, and we're here to celebrate the MLK. And I know it's a lot of people out there celebrating right now. It's a lot going on. Y'all been zooming. And but this is one Zoom meeting that you really need to take the time out and participate in. So we're asking everybody to start sharing right now. Calling up your friends and your family and your neighbors and telling everybody to take the time out to join us in this very powerful, um, explosive information that the whole world needs to know. And what we're saying right here in Louisiana, what we're known for as Louisiana United International, a powerful civil constitutional human rights organization, we're known for exposing this type of wrongdoing, this type of injustice. And I'm telling you, people, it's time for you to know the real truth about what's really going on, especially here in Louisiana. There have been some traps. Traps. And when we came out in 2007 and we began to investigate and explore the fact that there were a racist, unconstitutional Jim Crow law here in the Louisiana Constitution that said that you can put a person in prison and give them 25 years to life without having a unanimous jury verdict. We exposed that. We're known for that. And not only did we expose it, we rallied with the grassroots organization, and many other organizations joined up with us and supported the effort to get that racist, unconstitutional Jim Crow law changed here in the state of Louisiana. So I'm here to tell you right now, nobody is talking about what we're getting ready to tell you right now. It's a whole lot of talking going on, but now it's time for action. And we're going to expose something here today that the whole world needs to know about, especially the citizens here in the state of Louisiana. We're going to take our time. We got some dynamic panelists here that this is a discussion that we want to bring everybody into. We're going to be giving you the opportunity to participate. That's important because we need to hear what you have to say about this. But we have the panelists here that is going to address the law, the deep hidden information, the information that, the truth, the facts that you need to know. So that's so important right now. Go right ahead, Dr. Z. I just want to say welcome to everybody because my phone been blowing up. I know we're getting a lot of people that are excited about this, and I'm really excited because, it come a time when you just get fed up with people being done wrong, and I'm taking it real serious right now because we're on the cutting edge of making these changes necessary to make things better for all people. Go right ahead, Dr. Z. Take it off of there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Belinda. I'm Dr. Zena Crenshaw Logal, and I'm Assistant Chief of Operations for Louisiana United International. And so in that capacity, let me give you a little housekeeping rules. For those of you who are in our live audience, if you have any question, you can either put it, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you have a place where you can pose questions and we can give you answers all throughout this webinar, or you can send questions directly to the panelists or to other audience members, live audience members through the chat function. And then at some point we'll break away for Q&A, and we'll either answer your written questions or give you an opportunity, open up the mic. So as Ms. Belinda says, we want to make it interactive. So as you all know, this webinar is about predatory policing, and our subline is when the extortionate power of America's criminal justice system is used to avoid appropriate law enforcement accountability. Now, Ms. Belinda, do you want to share with us your vision as LUI CEO of what this predatory policing is about, or do you want our panelists to introduce themselves briefly? How do you want to proceed?
Why don't we go right ahead and have our panelists one by one introduce themselves and give us a little background on themselves. Thank you so much, Dr. Z.
Okay, so why don't we start with a Louisiana homegrown former law enforcement officer, Mr. Randy Franklin.
I have to say I'm not from Louisiana.
Oh, okay, my mistake. I figure everybody, probably everybody is one way or another from Louisiana, so go ahead.
I am Mississippi. All my relatives are in Louisiana.
Okay, see, I told you.
Los Angeles Police Sergeant. I did 30 years with the Los Angeles Police Department. And during that time, I saw the injustice that was occurring, so I formed the Community Council for Police Accountability.
Randy, let's have you get closer to your mic. Closer to your mic. We're having a little difficulty hearing
you. Hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you a lot better now. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start over again. I am a former Los Angeles Police Sergeant. I did 30 years with the Los Angeles Police Department. During that time, I saw the injustices that we were talking about, so I formed the Community Council for Police Accountability to try to hold police accountable by providing information to the general public of their rights. I believe if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. So I tried to inform them of that. That's how I met Ms. Belinda Brown. And I believe what we're talking about today is very important. So I was honored to be invited to this conversation.
Thank you so much. Now, one of our coalition campaign members is the Community Council for Police Accountability, which is founded and administered by Mr. Franklin. And another one is what we call for short the Law Project. That's a group that I'm a co-founder of and the CEO of. So I wear a lot of hats. But with me today is Dr. Andrew D. Jackson, and he'll introduce himself. We call him affectionately Dr. J. So Dr. Jackson, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about the capacity in which you're participating in this webinar. Dr.
Yes,
Jackson?
This is me, Dr. Andrew D. Jackson. I'm listening to what's going on, and if I have any comments to make or any insights to share, I'll share them.
Well, you're going to be sharing them, but given your background, you work as a co-administrator of Golden Badge, and you and I co-founded the Law Project, which is a lot like LUI, Civil, Constitutional, and Human Rights Organization, but we tend to work more on the public policy end of it because we function as a think tank. So tell us a bit about your background with regard to practicing law, Dr. Jackson, because that's going to be very helpful in as we talk about this subject of predatory policing. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I was in private practice for some time, and I also was a municipal public defender in the town city court, and I also I took a look at how the police department operated, and I remember one time that I went to the police station. I think I found a wallet on the sidewalk. I went to turn it in, and it was shift change, and one of the cops came in, and the desk sergeant said, "What? In 8 hours you haven't written up even one traffic ticket?" And he said, "Nobody was violating any traffic ordinances while I was on duty." The desk sergeant didn't seem to like that.
Hmm. Well, that's gonna definitely come into play as we talk more about this whole dynamics of police stops and interviews and investigations. So we look forward to learn more about your insights. So for now,
Well,
Dr. Jackson, let's go ahead and let former Deputy Sheriff Maurice Morris come in and introduce himself. We'll come back to you, and you can tell us more about your experiences.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. And I want to thank the panelists and everyone for inviting me to be a part of this. My name is Maurice Morris. I've been in and out of law enforcement and security for 20 years. I spent 13 years as a Lucas County Deputy Sheriff. Also, I ran as a Democrat candidate for sheriff in Toledo, Lucas County, Ohio. I'm also the National Director of Recruitment for Golden Badge. And if you guys don't know, Golden Badge is a company or an international organization of current and former criminal justice law enforcement officers who were wrongly disciplined, terminated, sued, or even prosecuted in apparent retaliation for our respective attempts fairly and impartially to enforce laws, regulations in accordance with our professional obligation. So I became a part of Golden Badge after going through a traumatic event with the Sheriff's Department. I've been part of Golden Badge now for probably over 7 years, and I've been trying to get the message out about predatory policing, how we enter and react with our law enforcement throughout this country.
Well, thank you so much. And I just want to add before we have Miss Belinda come in and sort of share her vision of this campaign and what brought LUI into addressing predatory policing. I am a former civil trial lawyer turned full-time human rights activist since 1998. And so I tend to get called in. You'll see I tend to get sort of like the legalistic with my analysis of these various issues. So that's pretty much the hat I wear. And but we look forward to Ms. Belinda really presenting these issues in a way that the community is bringing them to her, and as she has perceived them in her capacity as head of LUI. So Ms. Belinda, want to set the stage for us?
Absolutely, Dr. Z. Wow, I'm very impressed with all of our panelists, and this is the reason why, when we have people that have this type of background and training and education on how these things work, how we actually, what happened, how did we get here? And we have to pick this thing apart, and so that we can be able to articulate and get our people to really understand the real truth about what's going on. And I just want to say that, we have all sorts of racial bias, and in our criminal justice system, we have, it's politics, all kinds of things that goes on in our criminal justice system. But we know that, that the police is kind of like the gateway. They are the gatekeepers of when you have to, you know, have these type of tricks and these type of schemes and plots on how you going to trap people inside of the system. Because and we talk about this all the time, that it's not the people, it's the system. And what happens is that the system has to breed. It's full of greed. It's prisons for profit. It's the jails got to have a certain percentage of people, before they can get the federal government money. So what we're here today is to expose this trap that Louisiana have set in their constitution to trap people inside of their system. And we got to pick this thing apart so that you can understand that it's a trap. It is a trap, people. So with that said, Dr. Z, you know, I'm excited that we can, you know, have this national day of action, you know, for Dr. Martin Luther King, that this is going to be our event, LUI, in exposing these type of traps, this unlawful trap that have been set here against the people in the state of Louisiana. So let's go into discussion and break it down and let the people know the real truth about what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to start us off if I can. In Louisiana, private citizens have the right to resist unlawful detention or arrest. You know, I've even encountered law enforcement officers who didn't realize that the Louisiana legislature has given specifically Louisiana citizens the right to resist unlawful detention. They can't, you know, that's any type of way in which a law enforcement officer would detain you, and you also have a right to resist unlawful arrest. However, resistance is the very thing that entitles Louisiana law enforcement officers to use force. So you all try to stick with me as we go through, and you'll see the catch-22, the trap that Miss Belinda is talking about. Okay, now, in Louisiana, the problem is there is no standardized protection. There is no clear, predictable, uniform safety zone in order to protect private citizens and law enforcement officers from unjustified uses of force, even during brief, polite disputes. So here you have this civil right, because it's a civil right when the legislature gives you the right to resist unlawful detention or arrest. Now that civil right is based in our constitutional right, our Fourth Amendment right, to be free from unlawful detention and unlawful arrest. So you got a civil right that's based on a constitutional right. But what the problem is in the state of Louisiana, and we're talking specifically about the state of Louisiana, there's really no safety zone that protects the citizen and law enforcement officers from unjustified resorts to force, even for the briefest amount of time, even if you for the most polite disputes. So in other words, and the panelists can attest to this, just you know, and probably the audience members can attest to this type of experience. There are some officers, we call them rogue officers, unreasonable officers, impolite officers, criminal officers at times, that even the question of, well, officer, what is this about, can get you kissing, you know, in a very aggressive way, you know, the hood of your car. Just the question of, you know, what is this about? Why are you stopping me? Okay, so even in that, you have supposedly have a right to resist, but even that type of question, because you're questioning the authority of the law enforcement officer to stop you, to detain you, and certainly to arrest you. But even that level of resistance can trigger force. Because the officer, the officer has the right to meet resistance with force. Okay, now training only goes so far in handling this situation. And that's whether you're talking about private citizen or law enforcement training. Yes, we absolutely need to know our rights as private citizens, and you're going to hear that reinforced over and over again, I believe, during this webinar. But knowing our rights and even state-of-the-art law enforcement training doesn't stop predatory policing. Because predatory policing basically takes advantage of this contradiction that Louisiana legislators have left in the law. It's a contradiction between the right of Louisiana residents to resist unlawful detention or arrest, and the versus the crimes such as resisting arrest, disturbing the peace, assault on an officer. These laws, these statutes that this legislature have created, they don't put in windows of protection. Say, for example, if the legislation said, well, you have a right to resist detention, but once the officer warns you that you must comply and you don't comply, they can resort to force. You don't have that window of resistance. What happens is the training in Louisiana encourages the law enforcement officers to be reasonable, to proceed with reason and caution, to try to make sure that they are proceeding, acting in a lawful manner. But it's really up to the law enforcement officer. So if the law enforcement officer figures that you've asked maybe one or two questions too many, and it's time for them to use force to get you to cooperate, then at that point, you are vulnerable, you are susceptible to, at the very least, being detained by force, if not arrested. um, and LUI has received complaints suggesting that this obligation of Louisiana law enforcement officers to be reasonable is not an adequate check, and it's not enough to keep in check this opportunity that the legislature has created for law enforcement to violate the civil and constitutional rights of Louisiana residents, their right to be free from unlawful detention and arrest. Because again, they vested in law enforcement officers the ultimate discretion as to when it's time to use force. So you get on the scene, whether it's a traffic stop or them coming up to your home or whatever, you get on the scene, whatever due process that a law enforcement on the scene decides to give you. They are like on your on the scene prosecutor, judge, jury, and executioner. Now we're talking about a situation. We're not talking about a situation where they have a warrant to arrest you. We're talking about a situation where you what they call in Louisiana interview and investigation, when there's basically the citizen and the law enforcement are they're encountering each other, and the law enforcement officer is trying to make a determination as to whether there's been some unlawful activity, whether a crime has been committed, and you got a private citizen there who may or may not know what their rights are in the state of Louisiana when it comes to an officer doing what's called in the industry, and Mr. Franklin and Mr. Morris, and maybe even Dr. Jackson will be able to talk with you more specifically. That's called a Terry stop.
Mhm.
Okay, and so during this time, the citizens got a sense of what they feel they have to do. The officer has been trained as to what options they have,
Dr.
and
Z,
mhm.
um,
And
one
so,
of the things we want to be able to do is show, I don't know if we have that video clip of Talia, just that one piece where the officer basically got mad and decided that she was going to be under arrest. And then we want to give a example of,
okay, okay,
one of our speakers, Lauren is out there, and she want to give us an example.
okay,
Just a few seconds. Okay.
okay. So, but we're still setting the stage
Mm-hmm.
that is this that is problematic, because you've got the private citizen, you got the law enforcement officer having this encounter and perhaps having different impressions of what each has the right and the authority to do, and this can be problematic even when you have the law enforcement officers who are doing their best to lawfully and courteously enforce the law. So I'm going to have to, I'm going to try to see if I can rustle up this video. But if our panelists can also share, even from their experience in law enforcement, how this becomes problematic when you have the private citizen resisting, are feeling like they're not obliged to cooperate with what's called a Terry stop. So
Absolutely.
can the panelists go ahead and share some insights on that?
Why don't we let Lauren come in and then they can engage with, let her tell her, just give us a brief example of what happens when the law enforcers are rogue officers. Okay. Lauren.
Mm, Okay, hold on. I need to figure out how to do the video thing. Am I blocked from video?
No, we can hear you good.
Okay, can you see me?
No.
No, we can't see you. We see your name.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. It's not giving me the option.
There you go.
There you go.
Now you should
Now
have it.
unmute yourself. Okay.
All right, there we go. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are we doing today on this beautiful Monday?
Absolutely. We're doing great. You go right ahead. It's a beautiful day.
It
It's,
is. Okay, so police officers are a part of the revenue generated process for most of the municipalities in America nowadays. What we're looking for is safety and justice, not, to be predator, like kind of a magnet to the predatory parts of policing. Police organizations have run out of money as they become predatory, and they target us citizens in our cars because that's when we're out in the environment and we're moving about. And of course, they're in their cars where they have all of their fancy equipment and electronics. So it is the process in excitement and it is a process in which they engage us into predatory policing, and the outcome is just giving us fines and fees because it's part of the system's budget in municipalities. 51 years ago, Martin Luther King died, and he was going to be pretty much what we're trying to do, but a lot more. He had a lot more power and stuff like that. And the Project Revolution and LUI is kind of just like a step in the right direction and kind of trying to help his legacy and, finish what he started in a sense.
awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lauren. Um, okay, Dr. Z, I'm hoping that you can find that video. I know Lauren is not going to be able to be with us long, but I really wanted her to come in and weigh in on how now that the citizens' eyes are coming open, that these young people are really realizing that there are traps out there, and that it's all about the system. It's how they're going to breed and feed off of the citizens in order to capitalize in their system. And this is wrong, people. And what we're saying is that the young people right now, it's got all type of things out here. I know we had talked with one of our pastors here in the community about their what is it, Dr. Z? They call it the claw, the claw, and it's like, comply, live, and appeal so we can win. But that is all good. But the real truth is that the law is set up as a trap to trap our young people, and that they don't realize when the law, and we're going to get into what the law actually says, and I'm hoping Randy can really just come out and just be very bold and say what he think the law is. Why don't we let Randy?
First, I have to address Lauren. Can you hear me? Doctor, can
Yes.
you hear me? Okay, first I have to address Lauren. First thing you should know is the police department does not make any money. All our money comes from taxpayers. You pay for all our misconduct, you pay for all our equipment, you pay for everything. And we're not even required to write tickets. We should write tickets because it's an expectation that we should, but we have lost millions and millions of dollars from supervisors trying to make us write tickets, which they cannot do. But just so people know, we don't make a dime. We are the biggest cost to every city in the nation. Our salaries, our pensions, our equipment. Just so you can get that correct. When we out there writing tickets, which they want us to do because it's the #1 killer of people. But if we decide that any day we don't want to, we will not. write not one ticket. We use those tickets to victimize the public if we want to most of the time. But on the law that we're talking about, I want you to know in LA, we call it contempt of cop, because any police officer can make up his mind at any time he wants to that he can enforce the law of interfering or disturbing the peace. But I have never seen a law written as badly as the Louisiana law. I mean, you are damned if you do and damned if you don't. I mean, just the mere fact that you want to ask a question can get you booked. And you know, we have to look at it now. And it seems like in Hawaii now that police.
Randy, your mic is why don't you help, because you're saying some very powerful, impactful things, and your mic is kind of like muffled. So
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better, but you got to keep it in a certain direction. You got to speak into the mic.
I just took off my headphones. I just need new headphones.
Okay.
But as I was saying, if you didn't hear what I told Lauren, that we don't make a dime. And people assuming that we make money, we don't. We just cost you money, and tons of money. We cost you money, and people don't understand this. The number one people that sue the police are the police. We sue each other and make more money than we did for any retirement in the whole world. But it's your money, it's taxpayers' money. But back to the Louisiana law, as I was saying, this law is unbelievable. I mean, you can come down and ask a police a question, and you could be arrested. And if they don't arrest you for interfering, they have the right to arrest you for disturbing the peace. I'm like, holy crap! This is outrageous. This law needs to be repealed.
Exactly.
I mean, because you have to figure out the knowledge of a police officer. At best, you should have a supervisor respond to the scene before they can enact this law. Just having a policeman bring someone to the station because he's pissed off, had a bad day, his kid's upset, his wife made him mad. This is crazy. I have never seen anything like it, and I have spent the last 3 days reading these sections, and it goes from 14103 to 108, and this is crazy stuff. So yes, I know now why the people in Louisiana are victimized, because if you try to exert your First Amendment right, you get arrested. If you stand away from the police 5 feet or 10 feet and swear words at them, you get arrested. I'm like, there's no way you don't get arrested with this law.
Exactly.
And understanding that you have the right to resist, I couldn't find any example where you could resist without getting arrested.
That's the point. That's the point we're trying to emphasize, Ms. Belinda, is that resistance is what it justifies the officer detaining you and using force to detain you. So when we look at the video that you're talking about with regard to Ms. Perkins, it's not so much that the officer, there is a crime in the state of Louisiana of resisting arrest, and they can use force. They can detain you. They can use force to detain you and to arrest you. But what the problem is that at what point, you have a right to resist. So you're between a rock and a hard place. And that's what's unconstitutional. The law enforcement officer decides how much patience he's going to have with you. So in the video with Ms. Perkins in law enforcement, it was the deputy sheriff. She was in the midst of having a kind of animated conversation with law enforcement officer, and then that's when they said, "That's enough. You're under arrest." And she got charged with resisting arrest. It's not so much a matter of well, I'll just leave it at that. That is the problem, that we all are entitled to due process, and you only get as much due process as a law enforcement officer on the scene decides to give you. So,
Wow.
maybe Mr. Morris can help elaborate to help us see exactly what the issue is.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I think a couple of biggest issues that we can deal with. One, state legislation has allowed this to happen.
Right.
So what they have done is weaponize the police to use this against its people. The second thing is qualified immunity. So your judges, your police officers, your prosecutors is in this cocoon called qualified immunity. Basically, they can do what they want to do without any recourse. So if you look at the law in Louisiana and it says that you can resist, but what has it been defined as? How much resistance can a private citizen give a law enforcement officer before they are taken to jail or not taken? So we need to look at our state legislation and how the law is written, and it needs to be defined so that law enforcement and the private citizens are clear. Secondly, qualified immunity. Law enforcement officers, just as Dr. Zenia said, has been given so much leeway and power that they could end your public speaking, take you to jail, because now they're upset with you because you're challenging their authority. Their ego got hurt because how dare you as a private citizen know more than I? Now, I want to digress for a second back to my brother, Brother Franklin, and we talked about police budgets, which is, of course, comes from the city or the county government. But one thing is for sure: any ticket that is written in that municipality or that county, if it's under either municipality code or state code, that money is going to go to the courts. That's how the courts are able to survive, because of those tickets, because they have to adjudicate each ticket either in either in state court or municipal court. So the revenue is now on the backs of Black and brown people in the community, because they don't have money to go into a court and be found guilty of a traffic stop or traffic violation or littering or jaywalking. They don't have that kind.
Maurice, Maurice, your mic is out, brother. We can't hear you. You need to finish up that last part. Your mic went out. Dr. Zeke.
It probably has something to do with bandwidth. So if I go and I'm gonna try to dig up this video.
And if Randy can elaborate on what he just said, Maurice, because we didn't get that last part, Dr. Z.
Okay, so do you want me to?
Sorry.
Okay, there, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, but you got to. Connection. Your connection is going in and out.
What I was saying was the Black and brown community are being used to support and fund municipal court in those local jurisdictions. So when the police officer writes you these tickets, most of our inner city citizens don't have the money to pay these fines, even though the police budget is already confirmed by city and county government. How municipal court stays in place is through all the tickets that is written that comes through the municipal court. So you may get a jaywalking ticket, you may go in and be found not guilty, or you come with a plea and they accept it, and then the judge will fine you for court costs. Fine you not guilty for the jaywalking, but then we'll charge you $119 for fines.
So, wow. Ms. Belinda, can we just look at the question of? So
it's all on the Black and brown community that's being ticketed, that's being targeted for these BS.
Yes.
Okay, Maurice.
And so why is it a problem to leave everything up to law enforcement officers? You know, you're on the scene, you got a right to resist. And then you got a law enforcement officer there who has, you know, if they're on the force, they've been selected, they've been a determination made that they are a proper candidate to enforce the law in the state of Louisiana. They've been trained. Can we talk about why, from the perspective of private citizens and the law enforcement officers that we have, on our panel, what creates the problem? Why is it problematic that the law enforcement officer gets to decide right there on the scene you know, how much you're going to get to exercise this civil and constitutional right to resist what they're you know, asking you to do there on the scene. I say for number one is that that's not enough due process for a law enforcement officer to be making all of those decisions. Why do you perceive it as a problem based on what you're hearing from LUI members?
Well, absolutely, Dr. Z. And I know we have a raised hand out there. You know, it's a problem because of the fact that, we have a lot of racial bias, in our law enforcement, especially here in Louisiana. So what, Mr. Maurice just said, you know, is right on point. They target, the Black and brown communities because chances are they're going to get a plea out of these people, and that was traps them in the system. And I want to go to Mr. Jackson, Dr. Andrew Jackson have his hand raised. So let's, go ahead, Dr. Jackson.
Let me see. Wait a minute, Dr. Jackson, you got to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself.
Oh, you're still muted.
You're still muted.
Do you see how to get that done? Okay, well, go ahead and unmute yourself. Let me see if I can do it. Okay, he's having some problems unmuting himself.
There it is.
Okay, so maybe I'll try to during the break give him some assistance because somehow he got muted and he can't unmute himself. Okay, there you. Wait a minute. Oh, you had it. There you go. Go ahead, Dr. Jackson. Oh shoot, he's still muted.
Mm-hmm. I know that is so.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Go ahead,
Okay.
Dr. Jackson.
Okay. Sometimes police officers, they set up traps. I remember going near the toll gate to get on the Calumet Skyway to get on the Dan Ryan Expressway. They had speed limit signs. They went from 55 to 45, 35, 25. And what happened was you couldn't slow down to the next speed before you got to the sign. In fact, I went over there, I got ticketed. I went and I measured it off. And then I went and looked around, and the ticket was under the city ordinance. I went and I looked and I found a state statute. It allowed twice as much interval than what the city had. So I went to traffic court, and they had a bunch of people ahead of me, about half a dozen before I got there. They were all ticketed for the same thing at the same place. Guilty, 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 guilty. I pointed it out as to what happened and that the state statute overrides the city ordinance. And I pointed out that this was a trap.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge said I didn't seem to have respect. And I said, people are getting mugged on the street, houses are getting broken into, and he's out there writing tickets to make money for the city. And what happened was I was found not guilty. The next guy that came up after me, same problem, guilty.
Okay. So that shows you. I mean, here the same exact scenario, and the court found, after finding Dr. Jackson not guilty, found people charged with the same crime guilty, even though that under state law they were not provided enough time to slow down to the posted speed limit, and therefore it was, I would say, unconstitutional for them to be getting a ticket in the first place. So this is an example of why it's problematic, because I guess what you're saying is that the court process doesn't correct the mistakes that happen on the scene in the field. Another thing I want to throw out there is that you got law enforcement officers. They're in a high stress career, and Mr. Franklin and Mr. Morris could speak to this. they're in a high stress job and don't get much emotional support or treatment for mental health care, for that are associated with their work. And so you've got somebody out there who is perhaps suffering from PTSD, or perhaps have some type of social, problem, sociopathic problem, and they're out there making decisions as to how much patience to have with a citizen who, maybe you're being polite and questioning the officer, and maybe you're not, because on the books in the state of Louisiana, it is not a law enforcement officer does not have the right. This is case law to arrest you. In the state of Louisiana, there's a case that says specifically you cannot be arrested just simply because you were cursing at a law enforcement officer. But, try it.
They do it. They do it all the time because, well, first off, let me say this. There are some really, really good police officers throughout this country, be it local, county, state, federal. And I think they do an extraordinary job trying to serve and protect our respective communities. I also think that there's a batch of police officers out there that mean good and hasn't for quite some time. And I believe a lot of that has to deal with culture within law enforcement. If your command structure believes or push that, or as that's the culture in that police department, that's what you're going to see on the streets. So the culture has to change, and it has to change from the top down, not from the bottom up. Secondly, to go along with what Dr. Z said, law enforcement officers sometimes have to make a split second decision on a lot of situations, and they should be given the support that. But in some cases, there are a lot of law enforcement agencies that can't support them like they need to be supported emotionally. We need to keep these police officers whole, not broken, not tattered, not in pieces, because they have an extraordinary job that they have to perform every single day. And I don't believe they get the support that they need. On the other hand, the bad police officers that's making it bad for the good police officers, they need to be rooted out because they're causing and have been causing issues in our country for years. And because of what's happening across this country, it is finally coming to the forefront that police agencies throughout the country needs to be reevaluated on how you conduct yourself and interact with the public. We're not second class citizens. We're not beneath you. We are ordinary private citizens going about our day trying to make a living. And if you got officers out there that want to enact their own type of justice, law enforcement is not for you.
Exactly. So, Miss Belinda, don't let me interfere. I was going to ask Mr. Franklin, tell us about your experience and just how easy it is for law enforcement officers to help identify those corrupt ones who are just sort of deliberately or recklessly violating the rights of citizens that they encounter. Just how easy it is it for law enforcement officers to identify those people and get them dealt with appropriately? In your
You're talking
experience,
about the people that are
law
that
enforcement officers themselves who are there, they see the troublemakers, they see the ones who are out beating people up. How easy is it for them to help the public identify the troublemakers and get them disciplined, get them
and
fight?
right. For law enforcement officers, I'm gonna go back a little bit. When an officer in the field, we have a structure set up for officers where it's supposed to go where officers can make decisions, but then you have a sergeant, you have a lieutenant, and then you have a captain. All right. Now, we expect our officers to be knowledgeable about the law, but we expect our supervisors to come out and to corral this type of behavior. The law we started talking about predatory policing, we have one in LA called 148. It got so bad that not even a sergeant or lieutenant could sign for that arrest. You had to call your captain in the middle of the night, and and your captain was the one that had to come sign for that 148 arrest, predatory policing. So that's what you have to do. I agree with Marcus that there are good officers, a lot of them out there. The problem is finding the bad officers without paying a brush for all officers out there. That's why we set up the Community Council for Police. Unless you can hold officers individually responsible for their own bad behavior, and that's why I set up the police insurance. It's a supplemental policy that we want to carry nationwide that holds that policeman for his own bad behavior. And it does not take one benefit away from a police officer that he negotiated for. If the union negotiated something for them, that's absolutely great. Give them everything you want to give them as a private citizen or you think they deserve. But a supplemental policy meaning if you go to civil court and you lose in civil court, then the taxpayers will not pay for your bad behavior. That's the only way I've seen in the last 30 years that I've come up with, that you cannot pay on officers with a broad brush, and that you can actually find predatory officers, and you can stop gypsy officers. Because a lot of officers, like the officer from Sandra Bland, they'll let an officer retire or resign, which means he can go to another department if he can find one, and they do find other departments. We have to be able to track an officer nationwide for his bad behavior. So if we can track them nationwide for their bad behavior, then we can effectively take bad officers' badge and guns away from them without hurting good officers. Now, I understand this is a stressful job, but I knew this was a stressful job when I applied for it, because we're the only job that gives you a loaded firearm until you go out into the general public. And I tell all my officers, like I used to tell them all the time, I was hired by the fire department first, coming out of the Marine Corps. But I knew I was not going to run into a burning building. I knew I was not going to get on a roof and try to vent it. I knew the only job I wanted was standing outside with a water hose spraying it into the house. So I could not be a fireman, because sooner or later they would ask me to be there. So that's what I tell my police officers. We got to get our hand right. I also tell them too, if you want to be loved, you should have joined the fire department, because there's never been a fire truck that came behind me that I worried about a fire truck. I had to get out of their way or wave at them. But every time a police car get behind you, you get nervous, trying to drive right, things of that nature. So, it is a stressful job for police, but we got to understand the job that we're applying for. We expect police to think on their feet and think quickly. And we expect supervisors to show up at the scene. The problem is, we supervisors show up at the scene and try not to overrule their officers when that's the place to do it. You shouldn't bring them to the station in handcuffs and write a fraudulent report. If it's caca, it's caca. You let it go right then and right there. But the law we are here talking about today needs to be repealed. Like I said, it's a contempt of cop law. It is a damn if you do, damn if you don't. I have never seen a law where resisting is verbal. Resisting, I thought they're trying to take you in custody, but you resist or you interfere with the officer taking your loved one or someone in custody. You run up there to try to lynch him out of it. But a law that states that your mouth is resisting if you 10 feet away is outrageous. This law doesn't need to be repealed.
Exactly.
Randy, before we move, Randy, I'm finding that when command officers show up on the scene and there's question about the legality of the detention or the stop, that most command officers won't overrule their officers, even if they're wrong, because they don't want that friction, on the job, with this or vice versa.
That is correct. I mean, I was promoting, I was going to promote to lieutenant, and then I found out that the best thing I could do was stay on the street. As they run in the Los Angeles Times about me, I make those decisions on there. And most, you got to remember that most police officer, when they talk about police, are looking in the mirror. They still want the status. They want to go to the parties. They want to go to the events of police and say to the police. So when supervisors show up, they're looking in the mirror when they were young officers, most of them. Most of them, it's hard to overrule the decision of a copper, even when you know the copper is wrong. Because we had something in LA, which was called dismissed in the interest of justice, or it was a release. And they were like, okay, just take him. I don't want to stop this officer from being aggressive or hurt his feeling in front of the citizen. So take him in the station, which violates his rights. If you transport anyone that you know is illegal, that's kidnapping and false arrest. But you have to have courage. And I would say a lot of supervisors I ran into don't have the courage to override their people in the industry. But then you hold the lieutenant, the watch commander, who have that courage. And not send it to the detectives so they can do a dismiss in the interest of justice or release from custody. At that point, the person has an arrest record, fingerprint, and you didn't put them through the system for no reason whatsoever. Exactly. And then they go to jail for 4 or 5 days. The prison just to make money. It's just a big old circle that goes around.
Ms. Belinda, what they're starting to get into is what we say in our position statement is the deceptiveness of CLAW: comply, live, appeal, and win. So should we move to that discussion? I think that we could probably list the problems with Louisiana. You know, we got Louisiana law, you got this right to resist, and you got a law enforcement officer on the scene. It's up to that law enforcement officer in Louisiana to make a decision as to how much of your exercising of your right to resist that they're going to tolerate before they start responding to you. And Louisiana is called on the continuum of resistance. And this is how they're trained. They have this continuum of resistance. They're trained to match your resistance with a certain amount of force. Now, resistance, it includes saying, what is this about? And if I could give a quick example from a personal experience, so for those people out there who say, just be polite, you know, just comply. Dr. Jackson was with me. This was in the state of Indiana. I got pulled over. The law enforcement officer was a young Black guy. And he asked me, why did I run the red light? And I said, you know, rather naive, I mean, you know, wide-eyed and, you know, not in an antagonistic way whatsoever. I said, I didn't run the red light. And it's like he almost burst into a ball of flames. That level of resistance was enough to piss him off. And I could have been yanked out of the car and given a ride down to the station just because I said I didn't run the red light. And if I had been, instead of a middle-aged Black woman, if I had been, you know, 18-year-old Black male, you know, dressed in with the sagging pants and dreads as young people do, it could have been a whole different experience. And it's the subjectivity of it. This stuff, can we get clear that this stuff, you can end up dead, let alone laying on a sidewalk, as what happened, as we can see when you tell me to show the video of Miss Perkins. So so you have mentioned, Miss Belinda, about the fact that you got in Louisiana a lot of concern about racist motivations of law enforcement officers. You got so you got law enforcement officers who are bringing animosity based on racial or social economic background of the people they're supposed to be protecting and serving. So you're saying that's a big problem. Then it also has been brought out is that the law enforcement officers are not encouraged, are not free to identify those on the force who are clearly being abusive and abusing their power. they're not free. You could face terrible retaliation. And I help administer golden badge. So I know law enforcement officers who have tried to expose this type of misconduct, and they literally have had their life in jeopardy. They had been at risk of even, facing retaliation to the point of being killed on the job through friendly fire. So that's another problem. Then you've got law enforcement officers that they might be, you know, maybe they started out intending to serve and protect, but they're emotionally compromised. So think of any of us, think of your children asking you a question one time too many when you've had a bad day.
Absolutely, Dr. Z,
Mhm.
and this is the reason why we have to expose what's going on here in Louisiana, because we know that there are racial bias, that the officers have their own discretion on who they're going to target, who they're going to, you know, beat up or maybe even kill, so this is serious and
Yes.
it's very dangerous right now because of this law that have actually given them, and this is what I really want people to see, and I want to break it down. You got a law that tells you one thing, that you can do this, like Randy said, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, but the law is giving you permission to ask the officer a question, or maybe even perhaps, cuss him out. If you feel like you've been, just like what happened to me. The law asks, the police officer, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't have to tell you what I'm doing. You see what I'm doing, and that fact. But the truth of the matter is, it says that you can do this. Listen, people, it says that you can actually do this in the law, but it's a trap, because when you do it, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because if you try to ask the police a question, or which the law says that you can, he got the right to use it against you. So the law is a trap. It's a trick. It's a rat trap. Okay, they got some cheese or some peanut butter sitting there waiting for you to go at it, so that they can put you under arrest and charge you with resisting. Now, this is where the scary part come in, because I think Maurice, I think you guys say that it's like you may beat it. What's the saying
What
that you
what
guys
what was that, Maurice?
tell?
About you might beat the case.
I said you may beat the case, but you won't beat the ride. And there's
Woo,
some
what you
law
say?
enforcement officers are happy for the fact that they were able to take you to jail. Now, here's the thing. It's easy to go to jail, or it's easy to get in the system, but it's hard to get out. And
Mm,
sometimes law enforcement officers will weaponize that for the satisfaction of putting you in jail for 24 hours, 72 hours, 30 days for something you didn't do. Now, we talked earlier about qualified immunity, and I want citizens to understand this in the state of Louisiana and throughout the great USA, that there's a federal law that if a law enforcement officer violates his qualified immunity, they can go after that law enforcement qualified immunity. So what I'm basically saying is we need to educate not only the people in Louisiana, but across the country what your rights are. Because police officers are quick to say when they hear you say, well, sue me. Okay, yes, sue them, but you're not suing them, you're suing the bond or whatever that police agency have. But then also under the federal section, you can go after their qualified immunity. So the more knowledge we have, the more keys we can use to open up windows and doors so that we can try to ourselves. Now,
Yes, but
mind you, going after them On a traffic stop, their qualified immunity is not going to help you then. It'll help you later. So how do we balance the resistance so you don't go to jail for an unlawful arrest as opposed to going to jail? So what's the balance? How do we strike that balance?
But see,
And it starts with our state legislation. Go ahead,
exactly.
Dr. Z.
It absolutely does. Well, in Louisiana, the legislatures need to put a more of a window of protection where is an objective way. You got a safety zone to exercise your right before this continuum of resistance and the option of force even comes into play. That's number one. But number two, you know, you're talking about qualified immunity and civil lawsuits. How is that going to come into play if you have no choice but to take a plea on the resisting arrest charge or the disturbing the peace charge, because you don't have time to keep going back to court? You're going to lose your job, or the public defender is encouraging you to take a plea, um, or even if you do fight it, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money. We have a situation now where the LUI has a member where the police have, the deputy sheriffs, their account of what happened is in direct contradiction to our members' account of what happened. And they're written up after the fact, after they had time to consult some people and type things up. It justifies how they treated our LUI member. But and so if you go into court, so you got these professional law enforcement officers are professional witnesses. So even if they're before a jury, you got a jury that statistics have shown they tend to believe the law enforcement officers, um, and and so you got the law enforcement officer is going to go in knowing that they have a good chance of being believed more than this private citizen. And again, they get a chance to write up the facts after the fact, whereas you making all your decisions, right there on the scene. And an interesting thing about this particular member's case is the law enforcement officers were trying to stop the encounter from being videotaped. And for what, a video doesn't, you don't can't necessarily know everything from a video, because there may be portions of it that is not on the camera, or if you get the wrong angle you might not be able to see certain things. But for what it shows, the video is the best evidence of it. But how many law enforcement officers are turning on their cameras? How many have cameras? How many are telling private citizens back up and stop, when they see them videotaping the situation? So it's a situation where they should not be able to stop the best evidence of what happened from being recorded, and then come in and rely on being able to just disagree with you, dispute what you say, and in order to win. That's another problem. And I'm going to let someone else say
Dr. Z,
something else as to why. It's also
law
more problems with as to why going to court, it doesn't help you. But go ahead.
But law enforcement already know that the black and brown community does not have the money or the status to fight a BS ticket or charge. They know that. That's why they do it on a continual basis. They know that the black and brown community is not going to sue them in state court or federal court, because they know it takes money. So law enforcement will continue to do what they've been doing since the beginning or the inception of law enforcement. It's not going to change. They know there's no money in the black and brown community to fight this. It's not. So, I mean, so my thing is, if we private citizen, and I'm all for videotaping law enforcement encounters, because videos don't lie. And as you said, Dr. Z, law enforcement have time to go back to the station. They put their thoughts together. They write a nice detailed report of the account. They got other officers that's going to back them up and help them get their stories together. We as the private citizen, we don't have that luxury.
You know, and in the case of one of our members, that the lawyer wrote the police. You know, and I want to say this: the police was so, you know, you know, it's like a child's education. I don't know what that was, but anyhow, he was so dumbed down to he couldn't even write his own, you know, complaint. The lawyer had to write the complaint for the officer. You know, and Dr. Z, you know, one of the things that we were discussing is that, you know, when it comes to hiring police officers, you know, they look for the ones that has the lowest score on the test. So, you know, all of this is a part of the trap. The ones that can't even write or articulate a police report in the first place, and what they do is bring the lawyers in to do it for them.
Exactly, exactly. That was a big national controversy about that, because out of what's that, Connecticut, a law enforcement officer, or a candidate for a law enforcement officer, he sued, saying that he didn't get the job because he scored too high on the entry test. And the court ruled that that wasn't unlawful discrimination, because the law department that was involved, it was Jordan versus City of New London. It really caused a stir in 2000, because the law enforcement officer saying, well, you know, the ones that score high on these tests, you know, they tend to get bored, and they move on. So we get the ones that score lower. So, you know, these are the people being chosen, the people who the headline was, he was too smart to be a policeman. You know, can you be too smart to be a policeman? It's just ridiculous. And so
Wow.
you got people who, they may never have been needed to be chosen. I think Mr. Franklin said that they can have problems in one department and still go get another job in another department. So this is who your selection. And then even the
Hmm.
people that are there are not getting emotional support. You know, so you know they're dealing with trauma, stress. They're not getting nurtured. And these are the people out there making decisions about your civil and constitutional rights, and sometimes in split second.
You know, and what's really scary, and I know that the George Floyd trial is getting ready to start. If it haven't started already, I think it's today or tomorrow. But it's, you know, people need to go on court TV and view this trial. The whole world is going to be watching. And one of the things about this officer, I think he had like anywhere to the tune of 18 infractions against him. And he was the officer that was training other officers. How about that? If that's not passing the trash,
Hmm.
what is it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Go ahead, Maurice.
I was saying
Maurice.
he was an FTO, field training officer. I'm gonna say this. I had this past year, I ran for Lucas County Sheriff here in Toledo, Lucas County, Ohio, and I had a situation at Walmart. My family, I was with my wife, my daughter, who's 7. We purchased some stuff. We walked out the door. We were leaving. This security guard come running behind me, and they accused me of stealing some toilet paper that I had purchased and had a receipt. There was an off-duty officer there working there at the time. So I went to, re-enter the store and voice my complaint about being accused of stealing something that I know I did not do. So here comes this law enforcement officer, and he started to ask me questions. I said, well, he asked me for my ID, and I said, in the state of Ohio, which is not a stop and ID state, you can't ask me for my ID, not unless a crime has been committed, about to be committed, or has been committed. 2921.21. So he looked at me and he said, well, I'm going to get your ID. I said, no, you're not going to get my ID because no crime has been committed. I didn't steal anything, but you going off the word of an employee. To make matters short, so I called in to complain about that officer, and I spoke to a captain, a command officer. I explained the situation to him. The command officer, a white captain, told me that he walks up on regular day asking for their ID, and they had not committed any crime. He told me this. out of his mouth. So here's my point. Number one, if that would have gotten to my community, that would have ended my campaign. It killed it. Number two, law enforcement officers, be it regular officers or command officers, feel that with this qualified immunity, they can do anything that they want to without any pushback from the community. So we need to get our judges, our legislation, our police chiefs, and our sheriffs involved in this conversation, because this community cannot continue to be victimized by predatory policing. It has to, and it must stop. And that was going to be one of my pet peeve if I was voted in as sheriff, was to bring in educated people, make sure they understand as officers what you can and cannot do. We were going to go through the whole gamut of reinventing the law enforcement officer to do what they're supposed to do by law, not because you want to or you got an axe to grind against a certain segment of our society. This nonsense has to stop.
And I certainly agree, Maurice, but here in Louisiana, it's working the way they want it to work because it's the law that they can do it. And that's the reason why we want to expose that they didn't put this, you know, in the Louisiana Constitution, okay? You got to understand, it's got two faces on it. You know, Randy said it best, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. But they put it in the law so you can do it, and then so that they can trap you in it. So this is the problem, people, that we have to change it. We have to change it in our legislation, all of them. If you know, and one thing that I have learned about Louisiana is that could it be that these people have made up these unconstitutional laws just so that they can trap people? You know, I would hate to have the thought that all of our elected officials are in on this. You know, could it be all of them are in on it? You know, this is scary, people. This is scary.
Miss Belinda, the first organized police department was when was it established? Runaway slaves. That's your first official police department, because when the slaves ran away, they formed a police or a search party. That is your first police department right there. And that same attitude still runs through our law enforcement. It hasn't changed. We're in 2021, and they will go out with that same mentality, like they're going out to capture us to bring us back to the plantation.
There you go. Okay, well,
you know, that's why we're here to expose it. And I want the whole world to know about it, that here in Louisiana, our law enforcement have been hijacked, okay? And we're going to have to change it. And we're on the right and going in the right direction to have it changed by exposing what they're doing here. Go ahead, Dr. Z.
Ms. Belinda, before we go into talking about solutions and LUI's plan of action to address this problem, I think we need to give some discussion on the proposal by the well-intended proposal, I believe, of CLAW, that we should just give up all this nonsense about, you know, you got a right to resist. Just go ahead and comply and live. If you just, whatever they telling you, you might think is illegal or whatever, unlawful, it ain't fair, whatever you may think, comply. That's the C in CLAW. Because that the thought is you're gonna live that way. If you comply, okay, this is let me make this, let me make it more technical.
Right, because I want to
let me make it more technical.
My blood's starting to boil, so go ahead.
Let me not be philosophical. Let me be technical. The notion is not just comply because that's, you know, that'll help you de-escalate the situation. The notion is if you comply, then you don't trigger the continuum of resistance. You do not trigger the law enforcement officer in Louisiana's right to use force against you, because they only have a right to use force against you if you resist. So the notion is if all you give them is compliance, then you eliminate the prospect of force, or you put them in a position where they have to, you know, apply force in blatant disregard for their training and the law. And this is going to be, I think one of the, I saw in a Louisiana training session, you're going to make yourself your own personal de-escalator, scene de-escalator. You're going to live, then you're going to go to court, and you're going to, you know, fight it. And we already talked about how nobody got time or money to fight, particularly in the Black and brown community, you know, urban setting where people a lot of times are middle to low income, on the lower income field, and then you're going to win. Now, what you're going to win, I don't know. You got all these immunities that you're up against. And I guess they're saying, what are you going to win? Millions of dollars of judgments. I guess, Miss Belinda, you can tell us how many of those have we heard about? So we got people who are traumatized, you know, they never going to be made whole again. And that's even if the ticket gets thrown out. There are people out there who have pled guilty, went ahead and paid their fines, and to this day, are their eyes twitching when they see a flashing light.
PTSD, suffering.
They got PTSD. How is that a win? But the proposal is being that we give up all of this talking about rights and just comply. So we need to speak to that.
Yeah, and I want to say real quick, and I really want Randy to come in and weigh in, but you know, I want the people to know that bullying is a crime here in Louisiana, and we're being bullied by the police officers that are, you know, I want to say, you know, the way the law is set up, it's extortion. You know, it's giving them the right to bully us, to you know, when we're trying to comply with the law, because the law says we have a right to resist if we know that we're being unlawfully approached or whatever, or we have the right to cuss the police out, or we have a right to ask them a question. That's what the law said. We have a right to do that. But when we do it, they can bully us, take us down, handcuff us, lock us up in jail, and if we survive. Because we know in the case of Sandra Bland and many, many others, okay, especially right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Mr. Green, and I was hoping we can bring up that video of Mr. Green, how the police beat him to death and then turned around and joked and laughed about it and took selfies and say, we beat that N-word to death. We beat the crap out of him. And just think, Mr. Green, all he could have did was ask the question. So that's bullying, people. And if not, extortion, because the law is set up to trap us so that they can do whatever they want to do to us.
Miss Belinda?
Yeah.
You are right about the bullying. You even mentioned Blaine situation. But I don't know if you know it or not. There was a young man that was pulled over. He had a sidearm. It was being videoed. I think, and if I get this wrong, please forgive me. I think his first name was Philippe Castile. I could be wrong. I think it might have been
Mr. Castile.
State of Indiana. But his hands was up. He already told him he had a gun. He had a license for the gun.
Mhm.
They still shot and killed him. Dr. Z, he complied. His hands was up. He told law enforcement in the car, I have a gun. I have my CCW license. They shot and killed him, and the police officer got off on a BS charge
Mm.
of he
Mhm.
feared for his life. What about in Florida? The therapist, an autism young man, ran away from his home. The police was called that the autism man had a gun. No, he was sitting in the middle street with a toy truck. The black therapist was laying on the ground with his hands up saying he doesn't have a gun. I'm his therapist. He has a truck. Please don't shoot me. They shot him anyway.
Mm.
He asked the cop, why did you shoot me? He said, I don't know. The cop was convicted, but the judge in the case covered that cop where he didn't have to spend 1 day in jail. It's there for everybody to read. It's there for everybody to see. So not only combating bully cops, but when they break the law, they still get off.
Exactly.
And those of us who are ringing the bell against this corruption, because Golden Badge is pro-police, but we anti-corruption. And the moment we ring the bell, they come after us like vicious dogs.
You know,
But these cops
Maurice.
that are killing us are getting
Mhm.
off.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly.
Please go ahead, Belinda.
And then in these cops that kill you, who get a GoFundMe? You kill, you have the starting with what's his name in Brown out of that started all this, Michael Brown,
Mhm.
and the officer that shot him and killed him. Within 24 hours, his GoFundMe had $1 million raised in it.
Mhm.
But when you advocate for the law enforcement whistleblowers, you can't even get a fraction of likes on Facebook, let alone dollars on the GoFundMe. This conversation, and I didn't even really see all of this coming. But this webinar, thank you, Miss Belinda and LUI, thank you tremendously, because we're pulling back the band-aid, we're pulling back the scab on this wound, and we're showing the real problems, because right now the national rhetoric is the major media has allowed the Black and brown communities in the whole nation to focus all of their animosity against the rank and file law enforcement officers, the guys who and the women who are putting on uniforms and going out there to supposedly protect and serve. But they're not really, the national dialogue is not taking us beyond these individuals who, at the end of the day, some of them are vicious, I mean, from the pits of hell. However, so much of what is insulating their wrongdoing is bigger than them. You know, in Louisiana, the question we should be asking is, why have the legislators allowed the citizens of Louisiana to be put in this damned if you do, damned if you don't predicament? Did they not realize it? Should we send them all a copy of this webinar? Did they just not realize what they were doing? And then, it doesn't seem like the judges, the criminal court judges, are being able to do any salvaging of the situation on the back end. And what about the prosecutors? Don't they have some discretion as to which cases they will, prosecute and which ones they'll dismiss? So can't they make a decision not to put somebody through further agony based on some type of questionable law enforcement encounter? We don't hear, the national media doesn't have us asking those questions. It just has us focused on, a lot of times, the weakest link.
Absolutely, Dr. Z, and you are so correct. And you know, right now it's not going to be about the whatabouts. You know, we're going to have to, you know, bring about change. You know, and this is so serious, people, because our leadership have failed us. You know, and when all they want to focus on is how we're supposed to, as human beings, as upstanding citizens in our community, is we got to bow down and we got to comply and we got to, just, take whatever they give us. You know, that's not the world we want to live in. And what we're saying is that if we know that they're making these laws to concoct and, to trap and trick us, so that they can benefit from it, then we got to expose that. That is wrong. And that's the reason why, what Randy Franklin is here with this police accountability. We have to hold these people accountable. We have to make them responsible for their own actions. And if we're not willing to do that, then what we're doing is opening up the gate and say, whatever come what may. And we know that once you become a victim of the system, it's hell getting out of the system. Okay. And like Maurice said, you can get, you can go in there and you may even, win. But once you in the system, it's hell getting out. Okay. So I already know it's like a spider web that you can almost impossible for you to untangle what these people would do to you. And then they want to get you in there when they know you don't have the money to fight against them in the first place, because they got deep pockets and they use your own tax-paying money against you to prosecute you and victimize you all over again. So this is why we're saying they're the ones that need to be responsible. They're the ones that need to be held accountable. And we're not going to sit back and put our vote these people in office that's all in cahoots with this. Okay, it's got to change. So, Randy, would you please speak to some more of that? And then Dr. Z, we're going to try to wrap this up. This is a really good discussion. And I know that a lot of people could have came to this discussion. And we're live streaming. I'm telling you, people, this is something we have to change. Go ahead, Randy.
First, I want to say for Dr. Z, and anyone out there, never answer an accusatory question like, why did you run a red light?
Randy, your microphone is muffled. Try to speak right into your mic because we got to hear what you're saying.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, stay right there. Stay right there.
All right. The first thing I want to say for anyone to get a traffic ticket, never answer accusatory question like, why did you run a traffic light? Because we're going to use that against you. He should have said, I stopped you for running a light, and you can go from there. But never say, because if you say, I ran it because of this, we're going to write it down and go to court and use it against you. Accusatory question, don't. Second of all, I want people to know, for the good police on there, you have to really stand up. It is like bullying and everything else in the police department. Every organization wants us to turn in our own, and it's, for most people, it's difficult because they don't turn in their own. So we got to stop thinking that a police officer is going to start turning in his own police officers because that is what he's supposed to do. It is. Very few will stand up like me and do that. For the police department. And yes, it does look like all the time that the police are recruiting from the shallow end of the pool, for the people that we bring out and that we put on the police department. And they will try to convince you that there's not enough valid candidates out there when they are good candidates out there trying to get on the police department. The problem with that is in the hiring process, you got to figure out who's out there disqualifying these good candidates and picking up the good old boys. So we are losing a lot of good police officers because we are disqualifying them for caca. I know a girl got disqualified. She was a vet. She was a straight A student. She got disqualified because she worked at Costco and she ate one of those little cups, free cups. They told her that was theft. So that's why we're not recruiting we got to look at who's recruiting the right way. And you've been saying all the time, you got to remember that conviction is a business. If the judges and the prosecutors want to disqualify police officers because they perjured themselves, wrote a bad police report, lied on the oath, you got to remember, then every arrest that policeman made is subject to be overturned. Because now I've disqualified one of my expert witnesses. So they rather victimize you by giving you a release from justice or dismissed in the interest of justice, which it's hell to get off your record once it's in your record, because they believe you being inconvenienced from 1 to 6 months in jail to operate that business is not an inconvenience to them. So all of this does occur on any police department, and that's nationwide police department. And stand up against a police officer, yes, you will be a traitor, but you got to figure out whether you're going to be on the side of justice or you're going to be, you're going to victimize, especially your own people in minority neighborhoods, which occurs a great deal too. The question is, for all the things we have talked about, is how do we correct this problem of finding bad police officers and getting it out of the hand of the police department and getting it out of the hand of your police commission and your district attorney, who will not turn on this good old boys club that's been running for ages now. That's why I look at to have a supplemental insurance, because the insurance company will always look to make a profit. They don't care about a police officer. So if that officer gets sued or causing havoc at all, we'll start identifying them. Once we get the grassroots coalition going, and we can, like you said, we can get money on a GoFundMe or something, we can represent people all across the country when you go up against a police officer. You gotta remember, when it goes to civil trial, and the problem I have with all these cases that we did, when we go to civil trial, some select minority attorney is gonna show up, and he's gonna get you to settle. So it's not about justice anymore, it's about money. And he will convince your family that you get justice through money or not. If we can take a civil trial to the end, we can collect all the evidence that we need. We can collect training reports. We can collect his record. We can collect anything that he's done, and the supervisors that covered it up. Therefore, once we go to the end of a civil trial, we can take that information and go back to a criminal trial. It's like the new DA in Los Angeles is doing. We had shootings like the ones we talked about. And he is now reinvestigating, I think, 10 officers for murder for their trial. But you need a bold district attorney to do things like that. So the question is, we know all these problems exist. How do we correct these problems? How do we get the police officers to start spending our taxpayer-funded money to supplement his misconduct, his supervisor misconduct, the DA misconduct? We have to put something in place where we build a grassroots that we can take a trial. But they're going to dismiss all of these charges that are murder charges. Like, how do you kill someone in the back of your patrol car, believing that you going for your taser and not your loaded firearm? The weight difference is so crucial. I mean, a taser is what, 5 ounces? Your loaded revolver is 12 pounds? See, those are the cases that we are talking about. And the change police, and I'm hoping that the Biden-Harris will change nationwide some of this predatory stuff that's going on around the country, because we need laws to reflect it. And like the law in Louisiana we're talking about, you gotta remember, we're fighting a law that was made 20, 30 years ago. And you gotta remember, when these laws were put in the books and went to the Supreme Court, that we're not in the 70s and the 80s where, we knew as a minority we was really being victimized by the police. Times changing, but we need to correct this now. And we might have to send some more cases back to the Supreme Court, because they keep using the Supreme Court of 1967, 1977, 1980 against us in 2021. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at this, and we have to change this.
Well, Ms. Belinda, if I could speak just for a moment.
Wow.
If I can speak, can I speak just for a moment? You know, in my capacity as an administrator of Opt-in USA, because Opt-in
Correct.
USA is one of our campaign coalition members, and what Opt-in USA has done is we have we it started with average Americans who went to the legal system of the United States looking for justice and didn't find it. And it took all the, because we're got the internet starting at the beginning of the century, we were able to find each other online and talk about, even when the law was clearly in your favor, how it was derailed and it was a miscarriage of justice, and there was just basically no accountability for violation of our rights by law enforcement, court officials. It was no relief. And the only benefit of us chasing justice for the last 10, 20, 30 years is we were finally able to go to the United Nations and show them. We had analysis from historians and social science research, and we had our own experiences, that empirical data, and we were able to convince the UN Human Rights Council, a panel of experts on the topic, that the United States does not provide effective avenues of relief when you are alleging that your rights have been violated under color of law. That means someone with government power has deliberately violated your rights. If that is your allegation, then the UN Human Rights Council we were able to convince them that in the United States, they are not effective avenues of relief. Now, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that no one ever gets relief, no one ever wins. But right now, we're in a time in this country where, I don't care what has happened to you, how blatant it is, you got to fill the street with thousands of people to even have a chance to prevail. It takes years. And then we say, well, we need to elect these people out. A lot of people are feeling so disenfranchised that they don't even participate in the voting process. Ineffective means it takes too long, it costs too much, it's too hard to vindicate your rights in this country. So that is a violation of America's International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. What our country has pledged is that they cannot guarantee, there's no such thing as perfect justice. They cannot guarantee that we will never have our rights violated. Nobody can guarantee that. I don't care how many rules we come up with, there's always going to be somebody who's willing to violate the law and violate your rights. However, the United States has pledged that they will provide effective avenues of redress. You will always, for every wrong, there will be relief. And the UN Human Rights, United Nations has a process that when a country is failing to do that, what they are obliged to do is to go in and determine why is the legal system not working. And and during the Trump administration, we went to the Trump administration and said, you need to have a meeting with us, because the United States was in the process of answering to going through this review as to whether is complying with its obligation to provide effective avenues of relief. This is a standard thing that happens every 5 years. And the United Nations encourages the countries, the government, to meet with their private citizens. And so we asked them, and LUI is part of the coalition, to meet with us, because this is what happens. They need to meet with the people who are living these nightmares, and the advocates and the experts. And we need to have an opportunity to tell now the Biden administration, why is it not working? We literally have the gold standard of legal systems in the country. At times I have really literally thought our legal system, the laws were inspired by God. But that's how perfect they seem. But what is it about it that why is it not protecting our rights? And so what we need to do is press the Biden-Harris administration to have that meeting, so that we can share with them our concerns. And then they need to start basically like a FEMA. And the people from Louisiana, it probably flinch every time you hear the word FEMA. But FEMA, it was an agency that was created to deal with natural disaster. Now, what we are basically talking about is a man-made disaster. Our legal system has become a disaster. And we need like a FEMA to address the catastrophe that our legal system has become. And they need to talk with scholars and lawyers and judges, plus the people who are living these nightmares, and their advocates, Miss Belinda, the Maurice, all of us. And they need to say, okay, in your opinion, what is going wrong? And then that's when they hear from us. We know what's going wrong. We know why you can't just file a lawsuit and win. And we propose, what will it take to fix that? And then our country, under this international treaty, which is part of our federal law, becomes obliged to make a determination to put into place these solutions, make sure people whose rights have been violated, the people who violated the rights, are held accountable, they're punished. We are compensated for the harm that we suffered, and we make our legal system better, such that a lot of these problems can stop happening, can stop being repeated. So what I'm pitching for is that anybody who hears this webinar and who becomes aware of LUI's predatory policing campaign, we need you all to join with us to help put pressure on the Biden-Harris administration to do what they're required to do, the United States is required to do under international human rights treaty, and first identify why this legal system is not working and fix it, and make us whole for what we have suffered during the time that the legal system is not working properly. That's one thing that has to be done. And Ms. Belinda and I we can talk about in the last few minutes why, you know, one of the problems is we've suffered the harm. We know we want relief, but we don't always know what to do in order for us to win. We don't, a lot of times people just think, well, this happened to me. Can you represent me? And they basically, you know, it's like, can you be my lawyer? Can you be my advocate? And they basically wait on you to solve their problem, but they won't come to the meetings. They won't share the Zoom link. They won't tell their family and friends to come to the meeting, sign the petition. They won't join LUI. They won't contribute $5 or $10. And Ms. Belinda, you can speak to this better than I can. A lot of times, you know, maybe they don't do it because they're being short-sighted. Maybe they don't do it because they don't see the connection between their need to share a Zoom link and our ability to help them protect their rights.
Absolutely, Dr. Z. The most thing that concerns me is that, you know, people have been weaponized so bad by the system. You know, they have been, you know, just abused and victimized over and over again. And here in Louisiana especially, it's a loss of hope. You know, that's one of the main reasons why we formed this organization. But I'm saying to you know, our participant, our listeners, and all of our members that have joined up and supported us thus far, is that it's our leadership. You know, our leadership have failed us, and we got to hold them accountable. And the only way we're going to do that is that we join up and unite with a powerful organization like LUI that's focusing on these type of injustices. And if we don't see, one thing that the powers that be, one thing that they bank on is that we will not join up and unite and join our forces together so that we can be a powerful force to be reckoned with to address these matters. And And the reason for that is that they know long as they keep us separated and divided and focusing on, oh, well, look what they doing to me. Oh, they can't do this. That ain't right. Long as they keep us focusing on, oh, well, I'm going to get my lawyer. Well, go get your lawyer, pay your lawyer. And I'm going to tell you right now, you know, if your lawyer say one thing to your face, take your money and do something else behind your back, that's your fault, because that's what's happening. You know, it's only so much that they can do. And that's the reason why when we say that, you know, this have to be addressed on a systemic problem. This is a systemic problem. This not no isolated individual problem. You know, this stuff is coming through, you know, the laws, you know, and follow the law and follow the law. And if the law is not right and was not intended to be right in the first place, just like Brother Maurice just brung it out, you know, who's making the laws? You know, that's the question. You know, who are these racist, wicked, evil people that put these unjust laws in the statutes in the first place? You know, this is the problem, people. But we know that it is a problem, and that we as a people, we are victims of it, and it's time for us to change it. So on that note, we, you know, go ahead,
Yeah,
Brother Maurice.
so eloquently said. And to Dr. Zenia, you've been doing an outstanding job bringing the voices to the UN and also to the United States about human rights issues. And I applaud you both for doing an excellent job. But I want to answer a couple of questions. Number one, Miss Belinda, why this stuff is happening is because you got rich white politicians who will sit up on TV and said there's no systemic racism in the police departments. So how do we change that mindset? Number two, you can look at three instances: the Women's March, Black Lives Matter March, and then the march that was on the Capitol January 6th. You can see the difference. Black Lives March, they had so many law enforcement, they had military. Black Lives Matter couldn't get to the steps of the Capitol. They were arresting Black people on the bogus of charges. But we had the attack on the Capitol. What happened? What happened? So it happened right before our eyes. We can see the difference. They treat us different. Dr. Zenia's already probably heard this. There's two justices, two forms of justice, one for them and one for us. So it is on full display. We see it every day. They're not hiding in plain sight. They're just doing it. And last but not least, before we go, there is a question in the question box that we need to answer before we conclude this webinar. Thank you.
I got one last thing to say. Hello?
Go ahead, Brandy.
Really quickly, on the insurrection in the Capitol, what people are failing to realize is that people say, well, they were unprepared. They were not. And he's going to ask your follows. We got to remember that the police departments there are Trump supporters at the top. And if you got your orders that you needed to have the police deployed and you decided that you were under deployed so the Capitol be your friend, that occurs. It wasn't a lack of information that's there.
Brandy, speaking to your mic.
The people, I said it wasn't lack of information over there. The people at the top just ignored the intelligence briefing they got because they were part of it. We are finding out that they're the president, that there are Republican Congress people that all went along with this and not only participated in it. So there was no lack of preparation at the Capitol. They set this up so they can. So the chief and the sergeant of arms, I believe, was in on it because if we look at who they voted for and who they actually wanted in office, they let this fail. To correct the police department and the laws, we got to remember that the law has been infiltrated by these sympathizers of the nationalist people who want to suppress minority rights. And therefore, you cannot change a whole lot of laws if the people at the top want these laws in place just to control minorities.
But you know, brother Randy, and I don't want to get political, because believe me, I lost enough Facebook friends saying anything positive with regard to the Trump administration. But you know, misguided or not, when President Trump would say anything negative about major media, or say anything negative about the court system and its failure, it's failing average Americans, then people I've spent the last 10 or 20 years having their rights trampled because of lack of major media exposure, fair and impartial major media exposure, lack of judicial accountability. It was responded with, "Oh, how dare he say that about, you know, our media? How dare he say that about our judiciary?" You know, so politics it got to be a problem as far as I'm concerned over the last 4 years. And I feel to average Americans to a certain extent, I'm not trying to defend wrongdoing on the part of any politician, but we as average Americans didn't always uh, act in our own best interest, and I'll leave it at that.
No, I do agree with you. My point is, because I'm gonna get down to that if we band together, because I see no need for anybody listening to the webinar, their friends, not to buy LUI a cup of coffee, which is like donate $3 because you are down there in Louisiana defending their rights. But even though we don't want to be political, we need political influence.
That's true.
We can't do this on our own.
That's true.
If to get political influence, you need membership. Membership needs to donate a cup of coffee, $1, a bag of potato chips, shit, anything they can donate to the cause that is fighting and trying to help them. But
absolutely,
we listen to the thought of demonizing organizations in Louisiana, because the first thing they're going to try to do is say you anti-police, and we're not. All of us are, none of us here are anti-police. We just want justice. There's a big difference, but if they can paint you with that anti-police brush, then they will stifle your fundraising, your political influence, and we need those two things so you can keep protecting the people of Louisiana.
Exactly.
But if we as minorities keep believing that for $1 you're gonna get up on us, like, oh, if I give you $1, you're gonna come up and I'm not gonna come up. It's that type of attitude that is keeping organizations trying to help us to get to the top and change laws and pass laws. Anybody listen, please, please buy LUI a cup of coffee, buy a bag of potato chips. That's $1 or $2. How can it hurt you? And we have to do that kind of stuff so we can get the political influence that we need. I'm not running political. I just know I need political people to change the law.
Exactly.
Absolutely, Randy, and I thank you for bringing out that point. That is so clear, because, and even, you know, we sent out this link to all of our law enforcement from the state on down, and that, you know, because we know for a fact we have really, really good law enforcement out there, but the bad ones is starting to make the good ones look bad. So it's time for us to, bring about this change and support this effort, because we know that, you know, even with the Community Council for Police Accountability, you know, that is a perfect start. Because, you know, I'm gonna tell you people, if you're listening to me, you know, you have to understand that when you start holding people accountable for their own actions, then it's a whole different, it's a game changer. Okay. So, and that's why we're here. We're saying we got to start somewhere.
Miss
And it's
Belinda,
time for us to do that. Go right ahead, Dr. Z,
Miss Belinda, we have an important question.
that we
I
need
hate
to
to
address.
that
Okay,
we
you
need
go
to
ahead.
address. I hate to interrupt this line of discussion, but we do have this question. Good afternoon, all. This is from LUI member Dennis Knowles. In your expert opinion, how effective is civilian oversight, as in CRB civilian review of police misconduct? Are these shams that make people think they will get some justice?
Mm.
Who wants to try take a stab at that answering that question?
You know, that's kind of funny. I'm gonna try. Um, I just recently, I'm gonna say probably within the last year, I applied for an opening at one of our civilian review board here in Toledo. And in the beginning, they accepted my application, my resume. They said they were going to be in contact with me. I have yet to hear from them within the last almost 8 months. I don't
Mm.
know what happened, but as I look at Civilian Review Board, it comes down to if the Civilian Review Board has teeth, and what I mean teeth, is their recommendation is going to be good enough that they're going to make a difference where the community is heard and protected and the police officer is heard and protected. Civilian review boards can be as effective as the people that's on the board and the amount of power that they would have to use to make recommendations. That's my thought.
That's a perfect
Absolutely.
thought. That's the exact same thing I was going to say. Word for word. You are absolutely correct. It depends on who's on the board and if they have teeth.
Mhm. And then it also depends because we did the same thing. We went and met with our mayor. We went and met with our parish council. We also met with our district attorney and our sheriff. And we gave them the memorandum of understanding in regards to a citizens review board, a oversight citizens review board. And we have been blatantly disregarded, blatantly disregarded. So it do depend on who the leadership is.
So on this Martin Luther King Day, are we saying that average Americans that everybody's got to basically become their own Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Don't we have a right as Americans who want to just live our lives and focus on our own and our own family? I hate to keep on seeming like I've been told you blame the victim, because we talk about, we need you all to attend, we need you all to share, we need you all to contribute. Where are we? Perhaps, if you don't mind, Miss Belinda, we could close out with you and our some of our other panelists, saying where does the average American need to be now insofar as being able to protect their individual rights and the rights of their loved ones and have the quality of life we've come to expect in this country. I think to a certain extent we've got to all care, and we've got to all find our way to be part of the solution. We don't all have to start organizations and live it and sleep it like the people on this panel. But make a $25 contribution, make it every month, make it every year, volunteer every other month. You've got to find some type of way to be part of the solution. Else, I feel that we won't be able to protect our rights in light of this catastrophe that America's legal system has become. So that's my part. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Um, why don't we do this, Dr. Z?
Mhm.
I don't know if we can bring any discussion in, but why don't we just start with Randy? No, we can start with Maurice and then Dr. Anderson and then Randy and then myself. I don't know how much time we have left, but this is going to also include our closing remarks, and make sure you give your information on how, your website information on how people can follow your struggle or your project or movement in regards to what we're talking about here today. Go
Oh,
right ahead, Maurice or Dr. Andrew. Either one of y'all can go
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Maurice.
Um, Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. This was needed. Great discussion, great talk. But as so far as getting people to be involved in this movement or any movement of any kind to bring resolution and resolve to the people, is going to take the people. So my statement on that is Willie Lynch dead? If Willie Lynch is not dead, we're still going to be divided because people don't see the good cause in what we're trying to do because we're yet still divided. So how do we overcome Willie Lynch to come together to see the common good and the common for how we can uplift and move our community forward? How call on the attention of our state and national legislation to hear us? They're still not hearing us. We've marched. We've been marching from Selma to South Carolina to Virginia and back to DC, and they're still not us. What will it take for Congress, state legislation, judges, police chiefs, to really sit down and listen to our concerns and then help bring about a change? Because if they're not willing to change, that's where our stalemate is. Again, I thank you all. I'm going to continue with Golden Badge to do my best to spread the word and to get people involved in their individual's community to make a difference. Thank you.
Ms. Belinda, Dr.
Thank you.
Jackson and I are going to just defer our time. I just want to throw in for Opt-in USA because Mr. Morris said, you know, what is it going to take for them to change? But we've got to get people understanding that no one is empowered in the United States. No government official has the power to violate, you know, to violate the rights of American citizens, to deliberately violate the rights of the American citizen. That's not an option. That's criminal activity. That's treason. So, you know, we don't have to convince them to stop violating our rights. We have to put them in we have to do what we have to do to make sure that they're held accountable. And a lot of that comes from scrutiny from the international human rights community. It's just like any other government, foreign government, when you have a brutal dictator that's unleashing the military on the population, how do they deal with that type of threat? And so if we have government officials in our country that are weaponizing the legal system, they might not be machetes, they might not be showing up at your door dressed in military garb. But if our systems, our legal systems are just as weaponized against us, then we need to bring international human rights scrutiny to bear to first through diplomatic power to convince the people that are in power that you know, to make the government do what is supposed to do. But anyway, I'm sorry. We want to go open and have Mr. Franklin give his closing remarks.
Yes, I'm gonna give mine really quickly. First, thank you for having me here. And second, change has to start with us. We have to stop asking permission to change, and stop asking the police to stop beating us. We have to understand our rights and what our rights mean. And you know, we have to look at organizations and if you don't pick out, find an organization to join. We have to never stop voting, which give us political power. We need political influence. These are just simple things that doesn't require a lot of anybody's time. I mean, we don't ask you to come out every weekend to march or something like that. Find an organization. There are people like us, like Golden Badge and LUI and Dr. Z organization that we have done all the hard work for you. We just need you to help us continue this go. But change start with us. We are trying hard not to ask. We have been asking the police not to beat us for years, and that has not worked. So let's organize and let's get some political influence. Let's donate $1 if you have to any organization you want to donate to. That's what I tell people all the time. That influence will help us get to the legislators. That would help us change the predatory laws that are out on the books. And we understand that you come to us when you need us and we're there for you, but we would like for you to help us when you don't need us, so we can help someone else too. I appreciate it and I thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All of the presenters, I'm telling you that if it's ever been a time for us to really understand that, change come when we unite, this is that time. We have to unite on these issues. There's no reason why, when we see everything that's happening in our country, the police brutality, the Terry stops, the people that are black and brown communities being targeted, people dying and being shot and murdered by the police. What we're saying is that this discussion is all about solution. The number one thing that we have to know without a doubt, and while I'm talking, I want to, to make sure that our presenters put their information in the chat box. One thing that we have to know without a doubt, we cannot keep going looking for help in all the wrong places, asking the same people that have brought about this oppression upon us, like Randy said, asking them permission, okay? And, trying to, tell them that, this is wrong. They're not hearing that, people. They are the ones that are victimizing us, weaponizing us with this system that is in place to literally destroy us. That's the reason why, we feel hopeless in this situation. And we're having this discussion right here, right now, today, to let you know that there is solutions, but we have to unite on this effort. This is something that we all, no matter what type of organization or grassroots movement that you're in, this is something that we all can unite on. That predatory policing is wrong. These laws that they have put in place to trap us and trick us, for us to be weaponized by the system and become victims over and over again to this type of treatment, is wrong. So when Louisiana United International started this organization to expose this type of wrongdoing, first of all, my grandmother told me that you cannot solve a problem unless you know what it is. You have to know what it is, people, and we're telling you right now today that what they're doing is wrong, and they're covering it up, and we're shining the light on it, and we're saying to you that we have a solution, but we need everyone to join up with us and support this work, because now is the time for us to do that. So I'm hoping that all Randy, all and I really love this. All the Community Council for Police Accountability is asking for you to do is go to their website, put in your email address, your contact. That's important, people. Just do that. Just put that, he's not asking you for any money. What we're trying to do is build the movement with people that are in agreement and that are in supportive of bringing about these solutions. And we have to start doing that now, okay? Don't spectate. Don't stand on the sidelines and wait until something happens to you before you decide that you want to participate, and then all of a sudden you want everybody to hear you out about what they did to you and what happened to you. Me, myself, and I type attitude. We're done with that. That's over, okay? And Dr. Zena is here. I'm telling you, powerful movement, powerful information. We're not just talking, we're actually knocking down doors. And we need help. We need help. We need your participation. We need your support. We need your donations. because it takes money, it takes people and time to do this. So what we're saying, that if you did not share, or if you did not call somebody up, this information, this webinar is going to be out here for you to share like crazy and tell everybody about it. Go to our website, join up with us, support us, and be a part of the solution. Thank you so much. On that note, if it's nothing else anybody else have to say, we're going to close out and thank everybody for their time, and all of our presenters. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you so much. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule for us to have this discussion. And it's not over. This campaign is being launched because predatory policing is wrong, and we're going to do something about it. Thank you.
Miss Belinda, I know everybody's tired, and we've got about 5 minutes on the clock, but I would like to emphasize what LUI is doing for its members who
very
who have
good.
experienced this predatory policing. We are assisting to help vindicate and make whole LUI members. But you have to be a LUI member to receive the benefit. We are in a teaming agreement with the ACLU of Louisiana. They are assisting our members in securing representation with regard to civil claims that challenge this predatory policing. So that's, constitutional claims, Section 1983 claims, whether you're trying to get some type of consent decree or some type of personal compensation. We are teaming with the ACLU. They will help screen your case and get us to some of the nation's top civil lawyers. We've also pre-screened criminal defense lawyers. We're working with the public defender's office, and we also have pre-screened private criminal defense lawyers who recognize the problem with predatory policing and have agreed to try to make private criminal defense as affordable as possible. We're coordinating with professional citizen court watching groups. We will put together public relations campaigns. Miss Belinda is going to be speaking out. This is one of the first, well, we've actually had other webinars, but this is one of the, I think maybe the first big public awareness effort of 2021, because we need to let people know about predatory policing, because as Ms. Belinda said, you can't solve a problem until you identify it. So that's what's happening. And the last thing I want to emphasize is that LUI, we suspect that this predatory policing is that across the state, prosecutors and law enforcement command, they know that this contradiction in the law, the damn if you do, the damn if you don't, that we've talked about, Mr. Franklin has talked about, we suspect that law enforcement and the prosecutors and the various criminal court judges are aware that law enforcement are abusing that contradiction and are using the power that the legislator has given them to violate our rights. They're using it to bully people and to intimidate people. But we need you. We got an informal survey, and I got the link in our chat box. If you live in Louisiana, we need you to go in there, and basically all they're asking is, have you been arrested for resisting arrest in the state of Louisiana? We need you to answer those questions if you have, and even if you haven't, get everybody you know in the state of Louisiana to answer those questions, because we want to document that this is just not a few bad apples, that this is happening on a regular basis, and this is a pattern in practice. We know it's happening in certain individual cases, but we want to establish that this is a pattern and practice that's just being tolerated by law enforcement and including prosecutors.
Absolutely. And Dr. Z, also, what's so important right now for you to do, we don't care how old you are or when your case took place, because they got this another statute here, is that after 1 year, you're not not able to do anything, or your subscription then expired. But we're saying go all the way back. It doesn't matter how old you are, when it happened. If you still remember that you were charged for resisting arrest, or that you felt that predatory policing was a part of your situation, then we want you to go and join up with LUI first, because we getting ready to go back and get this stuff. Okay, we're going all the way back, people, because what they did was wrong. All right, with this law here in Louisiana. So don't matter who you are, how long it's been, join up with us, and we're putting some agreements in place to make sure that you get a chance to have your story told as well. Okay, what happened to you? We have a justice lab. We're working with some other grassroots organizations that's bringing this whole thing together. We also have some media attention that we're going to be spreading the word like crazy. We want people to go and just tell somebody that if it wasn't you, you know somebody that knows somebody that have been a victim of this type of predatory policing. So we want you to come and join up with us and be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're just about out of time. So if Ms. Belinda, if you don't have anything else, people got about another minute to look at the chat box. We have links to all of our campaign coalition members, including LUI. So take a look at that. But if not, we got about less than a minute, and okay, here we are. We're out of time. So thank everybody for joining us, and we'll
Thank you,
be in touch.
Randy. Thank you, Maurice. Dr. Jackson, thank you all so much, Dr. Z.
Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right, let's keep it going.